The Kuma backstory has come to an end in the One Piece anime, and we're finally nearing the climactic final stretch of the Egghead Island arc, where the 5 elders finally reveal themselves as one of the strongest enemies the Strawhats have seen so far. And while I'm sure that the anime will be giving us an absolute meal with these upcoming episodes, it's interesting to look back to last year when the manga chapters of these were being released. Interestingly, at the time, people were, and still are, actually disappointed in the 5 elders as villains. As final bosses of an arc as crazy as Egghead, and with characters that people have been speculating about for over 2 decades at this point, many readers felt as though they didn't quite live up to expectations, both as fighters and as characters. And obviously, the anime is going to glaze them up a whole bunch, stretch out the fights and choreography, put a lot of money into it, and make every little thing that they do just be the coolest thing ever. But before that, I want to take a look back at the original manga and give a sort of play-by-play on every action that each of the Gorosei took and how well they handled problem-solving and completing tasks, because I think that's actually a very key component to what makes a good, well-paced manga fight. There's a lot of other stuff going on in these chapters, lots of cutaways, lots of hearing Vegapunk's speech, but I'm going to be focusing on mainly the 5 elders whenever they appear in chapters 1110 to 1121 when they leave. Starting off at chapter 1110, when all of the elders first appear, Saturn called them all in for the specific, explicit purpose of stopping Vegapunk's broadcast. That is their main objective right now, is stopping Vegapunk's broadcast. And also noted that the Straw Hats, their personal goal right now is just to get off the island. First, we'll start off with Mars, the big bird. He smashes into the barrier to go and try and find the snail. You know, good stuff. Already staying on task. Good job, Mars. You're doing what you came here for. We see Saturn attacking Luffy and just not getting a single hit in. I don't know why. I feel like this shouldn't be your priority anymore. You just told everyone to start looking for the transponder snail, and you're over here attacking a Yonko. But whatever. We will see that Saturn is very much flip-flopping all around on what he needs to be doing throughout this climax. Warcury does nothing. He's just standing there. He's ore farming. Doesn't do much this chapter. He's just kind of standing right beside Saturn. Mr. Venus, though, ooh, he's doing some stuff. Immediately neutralizes half of all the pacifistas around the entire island. Like, this guy is showing up real good. He's doing good stuff. And then we got Jupiter, big sandworm guy. He ends up eating Luffy for like a whole 5 seconds, which, you know, good for him. That's a gold star for him. But then 5 seconds later, he gets straight up decapitated by Dorian Broggy. So overall, Mars and Venus are the only ones that are actually doing what they need to be doing starting off, while half of them are fighting Luffy, which, you know, your whole point of being there is to take out the transponder snail, and I feel like messing with Straw Hat Luffy right now is just a distraction. But I digress. In the next chapter, chapter 1111, Mars successfully gets into the Labosphere. Good for him. Still staying on task. He goes to Lucci, you know, trying to get information to look for York, who will probably be the best bet of finding the transponder snail. And he actually finds York by the end of the chapter. So, you know, good job, Mars. You're doing good. You're doing good. Nothing but gold stars from Mr. Mars so far. But now we gotta get to Warcury, because the first thing that he does is he lets out this big old Conqueror's Haki war cry to drive home the futility of escape. Big, cool Conqueror's Haki blast, which does nothing. It gives Luffy a little spook and does like funny like Gear 5 stuff to him. And it takes out, I think, we see 1 Marine that goes down from this Conqueror's Haki roar. But besides that, it didn't stop Luffy and Dorian Broggy for even a second. And it could have just not even happened. It's cool. I'm sure it'll look really cool in the anime. But, like, ultimately, it really didn't do anything. Then after that, he does, like, a really big, funny flip. And then he tries to attack Luffy, but then he gets blocked. His touch gets blocked by Dorian Broggy, and then they say a cool thing, and he gets knocked back by a cool combo giant attack. So these supposedly hockeyless giants are pushing back these elders. You know, they're not getting hurt, but they're not really doing much hurting either. And then after that, we get to Saturn, who should be, working on finding the transponder snail, but instead he's still trying to attack Luffy. So he starts spitting acid balls at him, you know, even though we know that Saturn can do a lot of other stuff. He can, you know, whack people out with his mind and make people stop with his mind, but don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just forget he did that stuff. So he does the exploding venom thing. Luffy, you know, uses his baseball bat and Gear 5 stuff to knock it out of the way. So, you know, another attack that does nothing. That's attack number 2 that's done nothing so far out of Saturn during this climax. So overall, 3 out of 5 of the Elders are kind of doing a poor job at completing their current tasks. Next up, Chapter 11-12. We start out with a Venus, who has already neutralized all the pacifistas, which is a really good feat. He's the first Elder to actually complete their immediate task. You get a big old gold stamp, Venus. You did what you set out to do. This is not a reoccurring theme throughout this arc, but boy howdy, you did one thing, so congratulations, Venus. So now Venus has a new task in, you know, following all the pacifistas. The next, you know, logical thing would be to eliminate Bonnie. He ends the chapter one-shotting a giant and then doing this really cool war farm. Ooh, he's looking real cool at the end right here, like he's about to do some cool stuff. But we'll get to that later. Mars still looking for the snail. He's trying his gosh darn best. He's starting to get impatient. He's starting to just blow up random buildings recklessly, almost destroying the entire lab. He almost blew up like everyone. So he's already getting a little reckless, which is like, okay, calm down, man. You can find it. You got this. But, you know, stay on task. He uses his observation hockey or something to sense one of the snails, and he finds it up near the big brain. So he goes up there, and he finds it a whole minute before the speech even starts. I mean, it was the wrong snail. It was a decoy, but, you know, you found a snail. So, you know, you're on it. Keep at it, Mr. Mars. Now on to Jupiter. He's back. He's regenerated. I don't know how you regenerate after being decapitated. I don't know which part regenerates from what, or if it just reattaches or what, but he's back. He's doing some sucking. He's trying to suck up Dory and Broggy and Luffy. He gets a building punched into his mouth instead, and then that takes him out of the fight for the rest of the chapter. So he tried, but ultimately didn't get much accomplished again. Warcury in this chapter, he's chasing Dory and Broggy and Luffy. Luffy does a big red rock right on his head, and it doesn't hurt him, which is, you know, honestly, we gotta give gold star to Warcury for that. It's, not gonna lie, probably one of the biggest feats that any of the Elders do in this entire arc, you know? That's like a huge deal. And then we get to Saturn. What's Saturn up to? We know that he was in the middle of fighting Luffy last chapter, and then, you know, he got countered a little bit, so what's he gonna do to Luffy next time? Oh, wait, what? Where is he? What? Why is he all the way up in the lava phase? How did he get up there so quickly? That's so far away. Why did you give up on Luffy? What are you doing? Are you like, oh, well, I'm not getting far with attacking Luffy, so I guess I should just go somewhere else now. So he has already given up on that task, you know, which he does a lot. He just gives up on things a lot. Saturn keeps just getting bored and moves on to other tasks before completing them. Warcury and Venus still technically haven't done anything productive, but, you know, they're trying. Venus is the only one who's actually, like, done anything productive, and the only one who's actually completed an immediate task. You know, he got that big stamp. We're waiting for more stamps, though. Chapter 11-13, Mars starts off next to Vegapunk's big brain, sees a little snail who he thinks is gonna end the broadcast, so he does a big step on it, but it turns out that he was tricked and that snail was a decoy. So very embarrassingly, he had to apologize to everyone. He was like, sorry, it was a decoy. Which is like, oh wow, an elder is having to say sorry? Oh boy. Now we move on to Saturn. He actually meets up with some of the Strawhats, and admittedly, I'll give him kudos for this. He starts off by saying, move, I have no time to deal with the likes of you, which is like, okay, good. Keeping your composure, staying on task, finally staying on task, Saturn. But then he just sees Nico Robin, and he's just like, nah, I gotta take you out now. So, yep, already done with your other task of trying to find the broadcasters. Now you're trying to attack the Straw Hats, which, you know, that's just what Saturn does. He just likes to flip-flop around. So he's trying to attack a lot of Straw Hats. He's not getting a lot of hits in, though. He's being blocked. You know, guard point Chopper, Zeus, Usopp is even getting some hits in on him. You know, throughout all this, I don't think that a single one of the Straw Hats gets hit once, technically. Now, Venus, who has a very important task, actually, which is to get rid of Bonnie, because Bonnie, at this point, can control all the Pacifistas, which makes her a very big target. So, he's dead set on killing Bonnie. He goes for the attack, immediately gets uppercut kicked by Sanji. Sanji's super cool, doing good stuff. Actually getting bled, actually bleeding a little bit, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, Venus gets a good bite in on Sanji too, so, we're getting a good old scuffle. But then Venus, he gets tackled by Oimo and Kachi after that and spits Sanji out. And then almost gets stepped on by a giant Bonnie too. So he's getting a little roughed. He's getting a little roughed up, Warcury and Jupiter, they didn't do nothing. They made a couple faces. They make they ore farm and make faces every once in a while. Oda's got to remind you that they exist every once in a while. So chapter 11-14, we cut to Saturn, still fighting the Straw Hats. He looks like he's actually taken a couple of hits in the face by a couple of them, but it doesn't look like he's actually done any damage to any of the Straw Hats. And these aren't this isn't like the Monster Trio or nothing. This is like the rest of this is Nami and Usopp and Brook and Chopper. So you'd think that one of the Gorosei would be getting some better hits on these guys, but 'tis not the case. He's not accomplishing this task, so Saturn does what Saturn likes to do, and he starts working on a different task. So he's just like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna leave. I gotta check out the Mother Flame. I gotta make sure that's doing all right, So now he's like running to the Mother Flame. I wasn't sure if he was trying to destroy some snails near the Mother Flame, or if he was trying to put out fires near the Eternal Fire. I don't know. It's not very clear what's going on in the manga. I'm gonna have to see what Saturn is actually doing right here, because he's like, the Mother Flame, no, so good for him. Like, after this, he doesn't go back for Nico Robin. He's not like, oh, well, I did this, and I should go back and, take out Nico Robin. No, he's just done with that. He doesn't see those Straw Hats ever again. Like, I get that was technically the task he was given at the start of, hey, take out these transponder snails so we can stop the broadcast. So he's technically back on one of his earlier tasks, but just the fact that he was just in the middle of fighting half the Straw Hats and then just gave up and left is just so fun. It's just so weird. It's just not something that happens in other One Piece arcs, I swear. Now for Warcury, he's still chasing Luffy. He's still keeping his distance between Luffy and the giants. Luffy tries to punch him again, and once again, he tanks the hit, so, he's tanking hits, which is cool. That's neat. It's not getting much done. He's not getting hurt, but he's also not hurting Luffy, so nothing's really happening between these two things. Chapter 11-15, we don't see, like, half the Gorosei in this chapter. Jupiter, still haven't seen Jupiter a little bit. What happened to you, buddy? You taking a nap? Warcury, there's still just the same couple of panels of Dory and Broggy and Luffy being chased by him. It's pretty much been the same thing with those four characters for the past couple of chapters. Not much has changed in that. There's like one panel of Mars walking around making a bunch of snails faint with Conqueror's Hockey, I guess. Okay, bro trying to be scary, bro trying to ore farm with the snails. So Venus, he's still fighting Bonnie and Oimo and Kashi right now. Also Sanji and Frankie are there too. He tries to get a good slash in on Bonnie, but Frankie intercepts that because Frankie is cool. He's at least able to kick all the giants off of him, which good for him. So what does he do after that? Does he go and attack Bonnie now? Well, he missed once, so is he gonna, hit again? No. He pieces out. Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? Kill Bonnie. What are you doing? There's nothing else more important right now on your list right now, Mr. Venus, than killing Bonnie. Where are you going, sir? In one panel, we see Venus. He says something weird. I don't know if this is like a weird Viz translation or what, but he goes, bio response detected, which, like, What are you talking about? You're not the science guy, Venus. Why are you saying weird words like that? I know in TCB he says "sense the living voices," which I'm assuming that means like, oh, I'm trying to listen in for the broadcaster snail, even though that's not my job right now. My job is to fight Bonnie, but I guess I'm still trying to listen for the broadcast snail while I'm fighting Bonnie. And then he jumps up all the way up high, all the way up into the sky, does it, in the span of one panel, which is cool, I guess. You got the hops, and then he goes, obnoxious bioresponse. Quote of the year. In TCB, he says, there are too many life forms up here. So I assume that he's just like, okay, there's too many dudes around to where I cannot sense this gosh darn snail, so I gotta do something about it. So what does he do about it? He goes and he cuts half of the Labophase in half. And that makes all of the CP8 agents and the Seraphim start tumbling down to the ground. Now, why did he do this? Like, there's two lines of thinking. One is that he's actually trying to save the CP8 agents who are on his side and also get the Seraphim, which are, important commodities to the world government. But at the same time, the bubbles are making it sound like, oh, I'm just really trying to listen to the snail, so I'm trying to literally kill everyone in here just so my head can be quieter so I can find the snail. And then him saving everyone over there was just a byproduct. But I don't know. This is very silly. It's very cool. It's very cool. It's probably the coolest feat that any of the Gorosei do in this arc. Cutting half an island. That's super crazy. But just the fact that just like bio response is just such a weird translation of whatever the heck he's doing. I don't know if what he was doing was an accident on freeing the Seraphim, or if he was actually just trying to kill them all. But then, if he was trying to kill them all, then I guess he really failed on that, because I don't think any of the CP8 or Seraphim died from that. So I don't know. But now, instead of trying to fight and kill Bonnie, which really should be your number one priority, he's up in the air right now. So it feels like the elders really actually have ADHD and cannot finish their tasks before they get bored and just move on to a different task. They can't keep it together. Now on to chapter 1116. Luckily, there's not much to talk about in this one. Well, maybe luckily. I feel like we should see more of that, but I don't know. The only thing of the elders that we get from this chapter is we see Jupiter. Jupiter's back. Holy moly, you're a part of this story? So he's there, and he's sucking up all of the CP8 agents. Now back to last chapter. Is he sucking up all these CP8 agents so that he can save them and get them back on his side? Or is he just actually trying to kill all of these CP8 agents just so the island can be a little bit quieter so they can find a snail? I think it's the latter. By the end of this chapter, and this is important, is that they all know that the snail is in the robot. So we got to take that into account. Everyone's new current objective right now needs to be stop the broadcast by attacking the robot. On to chapter 1117. We'll go ahead and start with Venus right now, because what are you doing, man? I thought he was going to go back down and then continue to try and kill Bonnie, because killing Bonnie is a very important thing, and you were right there, and you probably could have just gone back and killed Bonnie very easily. But now you're attacking the Sunny all of a sudden? How'd you even get over there? You were just hopping from one place to another, just like super quick in the span of like a panel. You're just already over there, and now you're going for, I guess, the other Vegapunks. I guess your new objective now is to kill the other Vegapunks, because this has nothing to do with the big robot, and this has nothing to do with Bonnie. So, new task acquired for Venus. Try and kill the rest of the Vegapunks, or kill the people in the Sunny. Why does that matter to you? You're just trying to stop the broadcast. Stopping the Strawhats from taking off and escaping should not matter to you. He does a big cool clash with Zoro, and that's neato. It's a clash. None of them win the clash. They kind of just each other afterwards, so cool. What are the rest of our elders up to? We see all four of them standing right in front of Emmett. And there's in a really cool panel. Look at this cool panel with Saturn and Jupiter and Mars and Warcury all just like looking at them real cool in the fire. What ends up happening is that 2 out of these 4 elders don't interact with the robot once. They're looking cool and menacing in front of them. They're definitely ore farming, but they do literally zero to this robot. Just keep that in mind for later. Warcury, who's been just chasing Luffy and the Giants this entire time, hasn't actually done anything productive around this time. While doing that, he's finally given up on that, so task failed on that. Your one task that you've been doing this entire arc, you failed at that, so you're just like, I'm bored. I'm gonna work on the robot now. And you know what? He gets a good hit on that robot. He actually stops the broadcast, which is like, okay, no, you did it. The thing you came here for. Did he do it? Did he actually do it? Wow. He wasn't trying to do it for the entire arc, but boy, howdy, he just stumbled upon it and did one attack, and then that was it. So, good job, Warcury. You did something. Gold star for you, Warcury. Good job. Let me remind you one more time, though, that none of the protagonists even care about the broadcast. They're just trying to leave. That's all they're trying to do. And they are not trying to stop these elders from stopping the broadcast because they don't care. They just want to leave. But it took this much for them to stop the broadcast. On to chapter 11:18. Their new objective is to kill all of the satellites besides York. That is their new thing, so they're hopping on it. We see a panel of them being like, okay, let's go do that. So that's what they're doing now. Meanwhile, we see Mars. He's attacking the Giants' ship. The beam, though, is blocked by Giants. And that's all we really see out of this chapter from the Elders. Chapter 11:19, let's go and start off with Mars. So he gets some attacks on Luffy, but it turns out it was all a trick because Luffy is actually using his noggin. Oh my goodness, Luffy using his noggin with a plan? Luffy having a plan in my One Piece, in my post-time skip One Piece? So he ends up grabbing him and then has Sanji and Bonnie and Frankie wail on the back of him while he's in balloon mode so he can team rocket Mars out of the sky. What? Luffy using teamwork? Luffy using teamwork in my post-time skip One Piece story? What? I love me a good old team attack. And we also know that they can't damage the Gorosei, so the best way to get rid of this bird is to just get him out of the picture. And yeah, I like this. I like this. It was cool. You know, he had it coming. Jupiter also trying to do some suctioning again because that worked great the first time. He gets kind of sucker punched. So that's another attack that was not successful for Jupiter. L's in the chat. So Warcury boldly, he does that big old jump. He's jumping after the ship, you know, trying to do some big damage. We don't know how Warcury's fruit works, if he even has a fruit, or if it's connected to Emu, or if, you know, if he gets touched by the water, is he gonna drown? Warcury doesn't seem to care because he's just going for it. He gets a big old punch by him, and he actually loses his horn, which, you know, that's like the most damage that we've seen done to a Gorosei at this point, so unlucky there. And like, I'm gonna have to take that star away from you, actually, from earlier, because you didn't take out the robot, and you didn't even take out the broadcast, because we find out that the broadcast is actually still going. So yeah, nope, that start, gotta take that away from you, bud. We're nearing the end though, folks. Chapter 11:20. We see Saturn, you know, he's yelling at everyone to be like, hey, stop the transmission now! Stop it! And then he proceeds to not help Jupiter and instead jump off of his back so he can get to Bonnie and Kuma. You know, not staying on task again. You know, your task right now is actually, again, to destroy the transponder snail and the robot, but you got Bonnie and Kuma on the mind, so you're like, nope, gotta not help Peter and just be like, boo, boo, away. Warcury, he kind of just stares at Emmett menacingly all chapter. He doesn't do anything, but there's some really cool panels of Warcury looking real menacing at him, you know, going, Hur. So back up top, back to Venus, who is currently trying to kill some of the satellites like he was told to do. He cuts Atlas's arm off, which is pretty good, pretty cool, you know, almost doing it. But then Atlas does a big old cool, like, U-turn and, like, knocks him away from the Sunny, so then they can't get to the Sunny no more. And then that's when Atlas is like, I'm gonna explode on you, and it explodes on him. And that stops him for a couple seconds. He regenerates pretty quickly. It doesn't actually hurt him or nothing, but it just barely stalls him, which I guess is enough. I'm not gonna give that killing Atlas thing to you. Atlas done blowed herself up, so you ain't getting a gold star for that. And then Jupiter, for the first time, actually like does something beneficial and good in this arc, is that he actually eats a large chunk off of him, and he gets a good hit in on this robot, man. He takes his whole side off. Chapter 11:21. This is mainly a Saturn chapter. He starts off by attacking a bunch of the giants, but they're like, oh, don't let him hit you because he's poisonous. And I don't think he gets a single hit on literally anyone this entire chapter. None of the giants. He tries to do an attack on Bonnie, and Luffy punches his big leg out of the way. You're throwing 6 out of your 8 legs. I don't even know how you're standing right now with this attack, sir, but you're throwing all your legs at him, and Luffy just kicks them all out of the way. Saturn did not get a single attack in this chapter. He actually didn't get a single attack in this entire section of this arc. Like, he got some in when it was just him and Kizaru. You know, he was able to kill Vegapunk, and he was able to, you know, use his mind powers to, like, mess with Sanji and Luffy and, like, make, like, Frankie and Sanji, like, halt for a bit. But once the rest of the elders showed up, he just stopped doing that, and he did not get a single hit in. Every single hit attack that he tried to do was either dodged or blocked or countered. Pitiful, sir. And then at the end, we get the tag team Bonnie and Luffy Liberation Nika Punch against Saturn, and I mean, this is really cool. You know, the emotional build-up to this was really good. It's really cool. I have a feeling that in the anime, out of all of the things in all of these chapters, this one's gonna hit the most. This one's gonna be good. You know, a little bit pitiful that Saturn didn't get a single hit in, but, you know, still really cool. That's what I'm wondering, though, is that in the anime, are they gonna give him some hits? Are they gonna give him some pity points for just to stretch out the choreography a little bit? Or are they gonna stick true and be like, no, he didn't get a single one? All right, final chapter 11:22. Warcury finally gets a good hit on Emmett and permanently stopping the Vegapunk broadcast. Now, it's a little too late, because supposedly most of the broadcast has already been said. I don't know if I can give you a gold star for that, because I feel like it took a little too long on that. Then somehow, coincidentally, all 4 of the rest of the elders are somehow all right beside each other and all right beside the giant ship and the Sunny. It's kind of crazy how fast these Gorosei really are when you think about it, how they're just like in the air at the top of the labosphere, and then like literally like 2 panels later, just whoop, completely other side of the island. Emmett does his big Joy Boy hockey thing, and they all get untransformed out of their monster forms, and then everyone but Saturn gets teleported back to Venus-Juro. And then that's it. And with that, that is the end of the climax of the Egghead Island arc. The Strawhats get away, and all of the elders are in Venus-Juro, and Saturn dies. So ultimately, having said all that, why didn't the Gorosei land for people as interesting villains in this arc? They had the presence, they had the strength, the feats, the history in the story. So here's the 3 reasons that I've come up with why people didn't really find the Gorosei as interesting. 1 is their morals and personality. When a villain is so simplistically evil, it can sometimes be seen as boring in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's fine, but in this case, people were hoping for a more nuanced character with these guys, and we were hoping that they would seem more like level-headed and smart. And the fact that the entire arc, like Saturn and Mars, they were just calling people insects, like, ugh, why would I care about what insects feel like the whole time? It just meant that there just wasn't going to be much discussion or dissection around these characters, which admittedly I can see why a lot of people would find that disappointing. There is a small panel all the way back in Eni's lobby in the Ohara flashback when that Buster Call was first made. And there's a tiny little panel of one of the elders silhouetted with their hands on their head, like contemplating what they just did, like actually feeling remorse for the actions they're taking by saying that the Buster Call needed to be started. That's what I was hoping for, like to give them just the slightest of humanity. And I was really looking forward to seeing where that was, you know, being like the Gorosei, being like the 5 elders, like the highest person in the world, having to make all these decisions and having to make the decision because of your place in the world to destroy like an entire island of people. What would that do to a person if this person is actually human? So I was hoping that we would get a little bit more humanity with the elders, but things did not go that way. They are very much just boilerplate evil, just you guys are insects and I do not care about the feelings of these vermin, and that's all we got. And I think that way is a little less interesting. Reason number 2 has to do with task management and incompetency. I've mentioned tasks a lot, but yeah, these guys are supposed to be the highest powers in the world, but they cannot seem to get a single task done in this arc. They constantly get bored of what they're doing and leave to go and fail some other task. While that may look menacing, you know, with a lot of the pages where they're aura farming and looking cool and stuff, the list of accomplishments on Egghead are actually pretty low. And also there's the fact that the way they were taken out of the story had nothing to do with what the Straw Hats actually did. Like all of the cool attacks that any of the Straw Hats and Luffy and Bonnie and Kuma, everything that they did, it didn't actually amount to anything. And the thing that actually got them to leave was this one random robot that has nothing to do with the actual Straw Hats. So yeah. Another reason I think the Gorosei didn't land with people is the lack of real stakes and real fights in this entire arc, really. The climax of Egghead is what I like to call a Run Piece arc climax. It happens a couple of times in One Piece where the main goal is just to leave, just to get out of here. The main ones I'm thinking of are Eni's Lobby, Punk Hazard, and Whole Cake. The difference between those arcs and Egghead is that in most of those arcs, there were actual fights with beginnings and ends happening in between all of the running. Those had more of an exciting struggle with satisfying conclusions, you know, with like Luffy versus Lucci or Luffy versus Katakuri. Even Punk Hazard, the Caesar fight was still like something that was going on while everyone was running away. But in this arc, we didn't really get that. It was just running. Luffy was just running the entire time. Like, he got some good punches in on some of the elders, but ultimately he didn't do anything to any of them. And there wasn't like a good like 1v1 Luffy versus this person besides the Kizaru fight, but that happened like in the middle of the arc instead. There was no problem solving on how to defeat the elders possibly in this arc. It was just like, we gotta get out, don't even attempt to fight, we don't know how to hurt them, so why even bother? Let's just go. Which is like a little frustrating because a large part of the last arc Wano was about learning to be able to hurt people who were once thought to be unhurtable. And then the thing that you learned to do that in the last arc, you don't use during this arc. But I digress. This arc wasn't about Advanced Conquerors Hockey, so Luffy didn't use Advanced Conquerors Hockey, obviously. But because of that, yeah, anytime any of the elders would start a fight, they would get bored halfway through and then just peace out and find someone else to fight. And that ultimately, I think, made the Gorosei feel more like obstacles instead of characters. The end of Egghead felt more like a Roland Emmerich disaster movie where the goal is just to leave, and the Gorosei were just a tornado or an earthquake or something. They had the same personality as that. So in terms of like really good villainy, that's all they really amounted to. Having said all that, I still really enjoy Egghead. I think it's still a couple of steps below Whole Cake for me in terms of post time skip arcs, but Egghead is so cool. I mean, it got me into making videos about One Piece at all, so, you know, I always got to thank Egghead for that. And I'm very interested on how the elders will be treated now in the story. Does Oda have time to give them all satisfying fights, even though we've pretty much seen what they can all do? Or is their time in the spotlight already over, and Oda already has other plans for them? there's a chance in the future that in some big climax, Emu might just take the powers away from the elders and just kill them right there because of their failure, and either redistribute them to other people like the God's Knights, or keep them to himself so Emu can grow stronger before the elders even get another chance to fight. That's just a little tiny theory I got, but if that happens, you heard it here first. I want to know what y'all think. I've been yapping a lot, so if anyone is still here by the end of the video, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for watching once more, and I'll see y'all around, I do declare.